What do we do? When black lives are under attack, what do we do? Stand up! 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 Stand up!
Yes, that scene was from Kansas City, Missouri this weekend when a massive crowd gathered in front of the home of a white man who shot a 16-year-old black neighbor. And he shot him twice because the boy knocked on his front door. The boy's name is Ralph Yarl. And here's what we know. Ralph Yarl reportedly meant to pick up his two younger brothers at a home on 115th Terrace in Kansas City on Thursday evening, but accidentally went to a house on 115th Street and rang the doorbell. A suspect who was not been identified allegedly opened the door and shot Yarl once in the head and then in the arm after he had fallen to the ground. Attorneys for Yarl's family say the shooter was a white male. And if you have not seen it, even though it is very much trending and a lot of individuals on social media are uplifting it, check out the picture here. This is Ralph, this boy here. He is a high school junior. And his teacher said his goal is to study chemical engineering in college. He also plays instruments, and he is a prospering, bright, intelligent, great child, and he didn't deserve this. The 16-year-old was, after he was shot, he was able to stumble to 3 different neighbors' homes, but no one would help him. And the man who shot him would not help him as well. But he finally reached someone's home, and it's our understanding that that neighbor, in responding to Ralph begging for help, told Ralph that he would help him if Ralph laid down on the ground and put his arms out, as though he were a criminal while he sat there bleeding from his head and from his arm. And now we know Ralph is in the hospital, and here are several photos of him here that have been provided by his family. And the road ahead for him will be long, physically, emotionally, so much trauma interwoven in the fact that he was trying to pick up his little brothers and simply went to the wrong address. And as we saw earlier, the protests outside of the gunman's home were calls for justice, because many believe that the shooting was indeed racially motivated, along with also being completely and totally unnecessary. Police had released the gunman after questioning, because we know under Missouri law, there is a 24-hour hold on suspects unless charges are filed. We also know that investigators are reportedly considering whether the gunman is protected by Missouri's stand your ground law, which is interesting because something like that would very much be a defense. So I would like to leave that up to the gentleman who shot Ralph to have to plead as an affirmative defense, as opposed to the prosecutors doing his work for him. Meanwhile, civil rights attorney Lee Merritt issued a joint statement with attorney Benjamin Crump. And Merritt tweeted this: "There can be no excuse for the release of this armed and dangerous suspect after admitting to shooting an unarmed, non-threatening, and defenseless teenager that rang his doorbell. Our offices have been retained to seek justice for Ralph Yarl. We demand immediate action." Social media also blew up this weekend when people learned about the situation with Ralph. And rightly so, it should have blown up, because again, we have an innocent, unarmed black child this time who was shot by a white man for no good reason whatsoever, other than he went to the wrong door. And we know that people are raising their voices. We saw all sorts of celebrities tweeting it out and people raising awareness, including the daughter of the late Martin Luther King Jr., that's Bernice King. She noted this, #Ralph Yarl. My goodness, let's be for justice, which is a continuum. That means the man who did this should be charged, and we need to work for the legislative and heart change to prevent these tragedies. Indeed. Because these are things we see too often in terms of gun violence, but also too often when it comes to innocent black people simply living their lives. And they should not have to defend their lives. And also, we shouldn't be put in a position where going to the wrong door is a matter of life or death. Jackson.
Yeah, and bottom line, the reason why the entire country is up in arms so quickly the way that it has been is because this is such a tragic and egregious situation that just plain and simply didn't need to happen. I've experienced people knocking on my door for a variety of reasons. They could be selling things, they could be looking for things. I've lived all over the country. Well, not all over the country, but I've lived and been a lot of places, and things like this aren't necessarily uncommon. And a grown man shooting someone who clearly is a kid kid. I mean, what do you have on your mind? Oh, there's this black guy who's standing outside my house at night. Let me just shoot him. I mean, could you possibly have asked him what was going on? I don't think so. If you would have asked him what was up with a clear mind, I think he could have very quickly said, hey, I'm here to pick up my siblings. But you didn't get that. So all around, these types of tragedies happen so frequently too. But I think one of the saddest things is that one of the other reasons that people are so up in arms about this is because this is a little bit of a different flavor of gun violence. We've become numb to mass shootings. Not that people don't care about them at all, but this type of protest and people just coming together again is a whole new flavor of the same issue, which is gun violence and racism in America.
Absolutely, and it harkens of Ahmaud Arbery, as far as I'm concerned, where you just have a black person out just doing normal things and all of a sudden they're gunned down by white people. And again, this is a 16-year-old child. You can't tell me that the man who shot him thought he was in fear for his life, especially when all he did was ring a doorbell. But I'm sure that is exactly what the man is going to claim. But then again, still, you have to show me, even in a stand your ground state, that it was logical, that it was reasonable, that it made sense for you to assume you were facing any kind of threat of violence and danger. And for a 16-year-old boy who rings the doorbell to come to your door, you can't tell me that that was violent in some way or put you in fear for your life. This man was out to gun down a black person, and this boy accidentally came to his door. And if just the presence of our melanated bodies is what harkens fear in these white people, that is just racism at its best. But my God, it is not any kind of rational or reasonable reason for us to be shot. And this is attempted murder. So please, if you're out there, raise your voice about this. If you are willing to, contact the local prosecutor there in Kansas City, Missouri. As I understand, it's at prosecutor@claycopa, CLAYCOPA.com. Send them an email, let them know you want to see justice, as well as if you have the means to help contribute, go to the GoFundMe to cover Ralph's medical expenses, because we all know even if he does have health care, in terms of insurance, it ain't enough. We know how our systems work. And so please do make a contribution. That GoFundMe has been organized by his aunt, Dr. Faith Spoonmore. I'm not aware of there being multiple GoFundMes for Ralph Yarl, but if you do see one, it will say that it is organized by Dr. Faith Spoonmore, and that's how you know it's legit. So please contribute if you can.